At the ports of entry, the federal goal is to detect and apprehend 30% of major illegal activity. And this shows the need for a three-tiered strategy. There are other problems with the roving patrol idea. You don't have the equipment, you don't have the sensors out on the flanks, the individual patrols out on the flanks, you're moving them a lot. And I think it's fair to say that when the checkpoint, for example, moved from KP25 to KP42 a few years ago, I would imagine that smugglers knew it before you did when it moved. In fact, last month, in August, the checkpoint at KP42 was closed for 4 or 5 hours. During that time, the Arizona Department of Public Safety had their own operation going. The checkpoint closed because of inclement weather for 4 hours. In that time, the Arizona folks stopped 5 drug shipments. Somehow the smugglers knew that it was closed. So that just underscores the usefulness of a checkpoint. And I ought to note, too, that if you look at the next slide, the map, the Tucson sector is the only Border Patrol sector of 9 sectors along the southwest border that does not have permanent checkpoints. The only one. So what are permanent checkpoints, and how do you distinguish them between permanent and tactical? Well, permanent checkpoints basically have off-highway covered lanes. They have bricks and mortar buildings for administration, detention, kennels for canines. Importantly, they have access to technology that the tactical ones do not. Technology may be inspection equipment, it may be sensors, cameras, it may be access to law enforcement databases, which is very important so that you know exactly who you have when you apprehend someone, and electricity and other communications equipment. It permits 24/7 operations, which is important. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, the next slide shows a permanent checkpoint at I-35, and I know that many of you are very familiar with this checkpoint, and it's been cited in different contexts. But this is an example of sort of the current generation of permanent checkpoints. I don't know how much detail you can read from particularly the back of the room, but you can see that there's a brick and mortar canine facility. There are inspection lanes that are covered for the safety of the officers and the quicker throughput of the travelers. There's a main building, there's a truck inspection area, there's room for non-intrusive inspection equipment like x-ray machines and backscatter machines, and so on. The throughput can be much faster at a checkpoint like this versus one where you may have to pull a truck to an area, make sure it's backed up just right so that you get the inspection machine passed and you have other cars passing by. But this is sort of the prototype, if you will, for permanent checkpoints. There are variations. This isn't the only thing, not one size fits all. But this is the prototype. Now let's turn to tactical checkpoints. What are they? Well, they're really resourced for intermittent use. They're not 24/7. They're basically on highway lanes. You've seen some of them. In fact, if you go to the next slide, there's one right on Aravaca Road. Probably have passed by it once or twice. You can see from this, it's a temporary structure. The lighting is temporary with generators right there. There's a trailer for administration and some detention. Cones in the road. The agents are standing on the highway, which is not particularly safe. But again, if this is a tactical checkpoint, it's not meant to be open 24/7, and although it may be in a fixed location, and I believe most of them essentially are at the same location. Slide 15 presents information that I imagine those of you who have followed the checkpoint issue here on I-19 are very well aware of. Between 1999 and 2006, federal legislation restricted Border Patrol from constructing permanent checkpoints, and from 2003 to 2006, the Border Patrol was required not to fix a location, but rotate it between, well, what they ended up doing is rotating between KP25 and KP42, as you probably know. These restrictions no longer appeared in 2007. The Border Patrol fixed the position of the tactical checkpoint at KP42 for a number of reasons. By May 2010, they plan to have the interim checkpoint at I-19, which will cost about $1.5 million, And there are plans underway to create a permanent checkpoint, but it's pending the evaluation of the interim checkpoint and the review of this study. The permanent checkpoint that is in the planning stage for around KP 41, at this point the cost is estimated to be about $25 million. And the next slide shows the tactical checkpoint on I-19. This is a fixed location now, but you're still dealing with the temporary cones, temporary facilities, agents on the road. It's very difficult to use the non-invasive intrusive inspection equipment that backscatter the x-rays. It is not an optimal situation. Let's go through the 4 objectives quickly. The first objective is how have they contributed to Border Patrol security? Well, we found that checkpoints in fact do contribute to Border Patrol, or to border security. One of the largest statistics, one of the most important statistics that we had found and developed is that using 4% of Border Patrol staff, 4% of the staff were responsible for over a third of the 1,000 or 10,000 Border Patrol drug seizures. 4%, a third of the drug seizures. They also apprehended nearly 17,000 illegal entrants. That's across the southwest border. Three of those entrants in fiscal year 2008 were found to be persons of interest for terror reasons. They appeared on different lists of interest. I don't want to get into any detail there. And over 1,000 were referred for criminal prosecution. So there is a value there. Another value that maybe some of the people from the state and local and other federal law enforcement agencies that are here today may tell you, as they told us, is they support them because they help gather intelligence on individual alien smuggling and drug smuggling operations, help identify smuggler routes. And because the checkpoints are there, we learned from law enforcement it makes it more difficult to smuggle drug loads, and either the drug organizations do not try to come here, they try to go somewhere else, or they try to use different methods which are much more difficult and much more easily identified. Okay, what is key in developing a checkpoint? Well, looking across the southwest border and how the operations have worked, what seems to be key is 4 things. Continuous operation, 24/7. As I mentioned, when the checkpoint was down for 4 hours here at I-19 in August, a state operation found 5 different drug loads in that 4-hour period. So continuous operation is important. Full-time canine capability is important. We have been out to that checkpoint and other checkpoints any number of times during this study, and we have seen the dogs hit on loads that just an individual inspection might not have. What's known as non-intrusive inspection technology. This is x-rays, VACUS machines, things like that. It's important to have that, particularly in large trucks or large vehicles, because there are hidden compartments that any routine inspection would likely not identify. And it's important that the people who staff these checkpoints are experienced and that they know their job. And the Border Patrol is taking steps, we found, to upgrade every one of these key factors. At the ports of entry, the federal goal is to detect and apprehend 30% of major illegal activity. And this shows the need for a 3-tiered strategy